No mai haere mai. It's the Huddy Hui. Find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. huddysports.co.nz. Now let's kōrero.
Kia ora, good evening and welcome to the Huddy Hui episode 178 and our final episode of the Huddy Hui for 2025. It's been a busy year, 44 episodes of the Huddy Hui. Actually, no, 45 episodes we've had this year and our 114th event on Huddy Sports. So it's been a busy 2025 and looks even busier for 2026. And speaking about milestones, well, our guest tonight actually recently refereed his 200th first-class appointment, and he's been in the national referee squad here in New Zealand for a number of years now, and was one of the top-performing test referees in world rugby. Paul Williams is our guest on the Huddy Hui tonight. Paul, congratulations on your 200th first-class appointment. How was the test match between Georgia and Canada?
First of all, mate, thanks heaps for having me on. I know you've been trying to chase me for a while, and I've been delaying a little bit, so it's great to be on. 200 first-class games. It was a pretty special milestone. I'd have to admit that it wasn't really something that I've been tracking over the years, but I found out on the Thursday leading into that Georgia-Canada game. And I probably took a moment just to actually recognise the significance of it, because I guess if I cast the clock back a few years, if someone asked me what I would give just to do one first-class game, I would have said my left arm. So I'm pretty stoked to be able to say that I've done 200 now. But to bring it up in Georgia, a place called Batumi on the coast of the Black Sea. I never thought it would be there that I'd bring up 200 first-class games. But anyway, as it turns out, that was the game. Yeah, Georgia-Canada.
What was the vibe like refereeing a milestone match in front of a passionate Georgian crowd at Batumi compared to a night at Eden Park or Twickenham?
Yeah, well, obviously they were all there because of my 200th, mate. They'd found out about it, so they packed the state. No, it was very much a case of, I guess, little brother, big brother. Canada were obviously out to try and prove a point against the strong Georgian side, and Georgia being the side that they are, and well known for their powerful scrum, powerful maul, very combative at the breakdown. I guess they wanted to flex their muscle. It was a great game, and while Canada did their best to stay in it, Georgia sort of out-muscled them, both physically and on the scoreboard in the end. But it was quite nice after the game to sit in the shed with a few of the guys and just sort of have a quiet celebratory beer, and that was just the way I would like to do it. So it was good. It was a nice little milestone and a nice little memory to boot.
Was there any other recognition for your achievement from New Zealand rugby?
Well, it all came a little bit late, to be honest, because Sarge, as you know well, is our statistician. He follows the numbers very, very closely. So he was the one who actually flagged it. So New Zealand Rugby obviously put a very kind post on their Instagram and pages and whatnot. So it was reflected that way. But to be honest with you, mate, that's all I really wanted. I'm not sort of one who enjoys the fuss all that much. I'm sure once my rugby career or refereeing career is done and dusted, I'll have time to sit back and reflect on those little milestones. But as and when they come, I kind of don't like the limelight too much, or the spotlight, I should say. So the quicker they come and go, the better. It's kind of similar to milestone birthdays, but we won't talk about that.
How was the autumn campaign, and what other matches were you involved in Europe?
Yeah, it was a great campaign. I was pretty fortunate. It was a quick trip for me because I had a family wedding here in New Zealand before I went up. So kind of missed out on that first round. But I went straight up there and we had a 3-day camp at the Lensbury Hotel in London, where all the World Rugby referees get together from, all parts of the globe. we talk rugby, we workshop, we try and solve all the world rugby problems. Just one at a time. But no, it's a great chance to connect before we sort of all disperse and then head off into our own test appointments. So the first one I had was England Fiji at Twickenham, and it's again, it's one of those things that I'll definitely reflect on later in life. Just the I guess the opportunity I have to referee in some of those amazing stadiums, and Twickenham is right up there, you know. So to have that game there was special. I think it might be the third or fourth time I've been there now at Twickenham, and each time it's very, very special. You know, I think maybe even it becomes more special later in your career. You know, because I can't do this forever. There will be an end date eventually, so you definitely make sure you make the most of all these opportunities as and when they come.
How do you prepare for how do you prepare a week before a test match, and how is it different compared to preparing for a Super Rugby or an NPC game?
Well, in all honesty, it's not actually too different. And what I mean by that is I try and keep things as simple as possible. You know, from a physical point of view, there's obviously certain things that we need to do in order to get our bodies prepared. But I guess from a mental side of things, we need to make sure that we're across all the detail of what each particular competition requires of us. Because as we know, looking at, say, test matches versus NPC or Super Rugby for that matter, the product is all slightly different. You know, in a perfect world, it would all be the same, but unfortunately, the reality is it's not. So we do need to be across all that detail. I guess the other thing as well, Brad, is the fact that, you know, we're pretty fortunate in Super Rugby where we get the consistency of working with the same guys, that same core team of 4 week in, week out. Whereas when we disperse and we head away and do these test matches, you know, we could be working with guys for the very first time or even meeting guys for the very first time. So that connection is really important, that we're able to actually find out a little bit about each other first before we actually start talking about, you know, the game and how we're going to operate. But, you know, I think, you know, I credit Chris Pollock and Mike Fraser in terms of the Super Rugby space. Around getting really clear on what the competition requires of us. And, you know, I credit the guys at World Rugby as well, in particular Brendan Pickerel, who we know well, who's put a lot of time and effort into what he calls the playbooks. So there's an individual playbooks for TMOs, for ARs and referees. And really what that's designed to do is make sure everyone is crystal clear on what their role clarity is. And I guess it's just like swatting for an exam. If you're across the detail and you're well prepared, you've got more chance of success when you get out in the middle or in that exam space. So, to answer your question, it's not too dissimilar in terms of the preparation, but obviously there's the natural things like the number of the crowd, the stadium, weather conditions in different parts of the world. And obviously the product itself. So, there's a few little tweaks, but by and large, I try and keep things as simple as possible, mate.
The game is a lot faster these days, and you sort of don't notice how fast it is until you actually see it at ground level at a stadium. How do you, as a referee, see is the biggest challenge on the field that fans probably don't see when they're sitting at home watching on TV?
The biggest challenge, are you talking more in terms of the speed of the game?
Yeah, the speed of the game. Yeah, because on TV, it sort of when you're actually at the ground, it looks like on ground level it's quite fast, but on TV it doesn't look so. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I can promise you this, and speaking from experience, the game is very fast and only getting faster. Which requires and demands a lot more of us physically as referees. But I guess probably one of the biggest things, and I was talking to someone about this just the other day, is the impact of collision.
Yeah.
And certainly when I started out, the impact and the collisions are getting much greater.
Mm.
And when you are that close to the action, you can actually like almost feel the shock waves coming off these bodies colliding. And there's certainly been a couple of times where I found myself pretty close and sort of wiped the sweat away from the brow of my head and thank my lucky stars that I wasn't stuck in between it. So that's probably one thing. But also too, and sometimes I find myself standing there on the field, almost in awe of what I'm seeing in terms of the skill level. And once upon a time, when we were talking about skill level, it would be more related to silky backs. Well, now it's 1 to 15. Props can throw offloads, locks can throw 25-meter wide passes. So the game is so much faster, the collisions are so much bigger, and obviously, it's a bit of a cliche, but we do get that front row seat. We just hope that we're not right on the stage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, you don't want to be like that guy at the Dubai Sevens in the weekend who got absolutely cleaned up.
No,
exactly.
No, but he took it well. He took it well.
Yeah. How do you keep yourself fit and ready for the demands of professional rugby?
I run around after 3 kids and a wife is how I keep myself fit, mate. No. It's getting far more tailored, far more specialised now in terms of what we need to be doing, not just through the week, but through the season in order to make sure that we're at our optimal for each game. We're very, very closely tracked by wearing our GPS units. So all our metrics are monitored. They get fed through to a guy called Wayne Proctor at World Rugby level, who's our World Rugby S&C. And he has a very close relationship with our individual S&Cs that we deal with in our franchises. So once upon a time, New Zealand Rugby referees had an S&C that sort of covered all of us.
Yeah.
But as we were all remote, it was quite challenging in terms of being able to get across everyone and actually getting face-to-face as well. So with the new Super Rugby initiative, where we've got Super Rugby referees in each one of the franchises, we link into the S&Cs in those franchises. So, mine's in over in the Chiefs, who I'm working with there. He links in with Wayne Proctor at a World Rugby level, and they monitor my load very closely through the year. So, there's that. There's obviously the strength and conditioning part of it in terms of the stuff we do in the weights room. Clearly, I need to be doing more, but it's certainly not a case of just rocking up on a Saturday, throwing the boots on, rubbing a little bit of liniment into the back of the hamstrings, and away we go. There's quite a bit to it, and that's all the stuff leading into the game. There's obviously all the rehab that we need to be doing as well. So, and I guess too, if it goes without saying, if we want to be doing this for as long as we can, then we've got to be looking after ourselves, because I guess our bodies are our income at the end of the day.
The role of the TMO confuses a lot of rugby fans. I've been in there and seen how the TMO operates. So when people ask me about the TMO, I say, well, I have been in there and seen how it works. Does it, as a referee, take the pressure off, or does it add a different kind of pressure for you as the referee?
Well, I'll probably go back a step and say it's really important to have trust with the team that you're working with. And once upon a time, and I go back to what I was saying before around the clarity that we've got with these playbooks that Brendan Pickerell's put out.
Yep.
He's done a fantastic job of being able to give everyone their individual role clarity. So now, and you apply that to a TMO, the TMO knows exactly what their role is. So my trust is that the TMO will be all across their role clarity, and they will know when to come in and when to stay out. There is, however, always that little bit of grey, and that's why we love our game of rugby, because there are elements of grey in it. So I don't believe you're going to be completely consistent across the board in terms of TMOing. There are going to be guys that potentially insert into the game a little bit more than others. So, when you work with people, work with TMOs that you've worked with for a long time, you start to build that level of understanding and trust. And again, like I was saying before, when you're meeting guys for the first time, preparing for a test match that could be that weekend, you can't force connection, you can't force a relationship. So it's really time in the saddle. So when I go back to your question, so does it add more pressure? I wouldn't say it adds more pressure. The only time where it adds pressure is if someone is stepping outside of their role clarity, or potentially not doing what their role clarity requires them to do. So, I think we've come a really long way in terms of getting that really good understanding. I remember, 4 or 5 years ago, it used to be a case of sitting down with the TMO and almost going through A to Z of exactly what you wanted from them, and then that could be different from week to week for each TMO. So there was a real lack of consistency. I think we are, no, I don't think, I know we're much, much better. However, this, I guess, last window in the Autumn Internationals, we probably let ourselves down a little bit with a few inconsistencies. And I'm not dumping this all on TMOs. No. I think across the board, we were probably a little bit inconsistent. So we certainly know that we've got work to do in that space. There's a World Cup knocking on the door in 2027. So we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we can get as clear as we can, and also give the teams and the players and the spectators confidence that, we're all consistently doing this across the board.
We'll come back to the World Cup later on. But one of the other things that has been brought in the last few years is the 20-minute red card. In your opinion, does it help the game, and does it make the contest a lot better, knowing that teams will be back to 15 after 20 minutes?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. I've always been a big fan of it. I'm a big fan of it if it's used correctly, put it that way. I think the reason why it was there was so that when we had decisions that was sitting in between that red and yellow, we could quickly make a decision. We could give the yellow card. It could be sent to the bunker. The bunker then makes a decision around upgrading it to a red or staying as a yellow. What I think we have potentially, and I'm talking more about this window we've just been through, we've probably let ourselves down a little bit around spending a lot of time deliberating around, is this a permanent? Is this a yellow? Where I think the whole point of it was designed so that we could maybe have a quick look, 1-2 replays. We know that it's foul play. We know that it's definitely a yellow card. And then we move it on to the foul play review officer to make a decision, and the game quickly moves on. Yeah. What we're finding now is we are spending just as much time, just as much time as what we have in the past, and still going through the review process with the foul play review officer. Then the decision comes back, it stays at yellow, so the whole point of this additional 20-minute red card was to keep the game moving without referees being centre of attention, looking at a big screen, 30 players standing around them, everyone giving their own opinions. And, we've got an obligation to keep the game moving. So, to answer your question, I'm a big fan of it, so long as it's used the right way.
How does the pressure of a test match impact you as a referee? And how do you review and switch off after the pressure of a big match?
Yeah, great question. I think over time, and maybe this is just a case of a little bit of experience, a little bit of maturity, you get a few scars on your back, but you start to develop a really good perspective, not only of the game in which you operate in, but a really good perspective on life.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, when I started out in this career, I had a lot of eggs in the rugby refereeing basket. So, I held every decision really close to my chest. So if I was challenged on something, sometimes I'd get a little bit defensive and I'd want to protect myself. Whereas now and over time, you realize that we are human. We're perfectly imperfect. We will make mistakes. So running out there with the knowledge that you won't be perfect certainly helps when you get to those pressure cooker situations where, you just do the absolute best you can with the preparation that you've done and the experience that you have. I also think too, mate, is like when I step away from a game and, you go through the review process, I'm very quickly come back to reality, because I might be checking my phone and it could be a message from my wife, and we're talking about, kids' surf club lessons on a Sunday and who's taking them, just normal stuff.
Yep.
So you get moments like that where it gives you a chance to just keep things in check. Rugby is absolutely a passion and a love, and we all love it so much. However, it's not the be all and end all, So I guess that's probably how I keep myself in check. I've got a wife who's great, because she has not been. She's a Yorkshire woman. I met her in my travels over there, but she does not know rugby like most New Zealand women would. So, when I finish a test match, it's just like, hey, how'd it go? And I'm like, yeah, no, it went fine. She's like, okay, so next week with the kids, and it just moves on, So it just keeps things real. It keeps things real. So I guess that's a way that certainly helps me, keeps things in perspective. But that's not to say, mate, like I do have games that don't go well, and I've got some really good people around me that I can download and share that stuff with. So as they say, a problem shared is a problem halved, and it's certainly the case. And I got that information, well, that advice from Glenn Jackson many years ago, where I shared a story with him that I'd been holding on to for a really long time, and he said to me, mate, just like we all make mistakes, you just share it. And it's now got to a point where I can actually sort of laugh off some of these comments that find me through social media channels and things like that. So it's just you live a little, you grow up a little, you experience life, and you just are a lot better at keeping things in perspective, I guess, mate.
Yep, fantastic answer, Paul. Let's go back to where it all started for you. You have a rugby playing background. Where did your rugby playing journey begin?
My rugby playing journey began at Winnerakura Primary School, I guess. It's a little country school in between Patea and Waverley in South Taranaki. For those that know the Māori song Poor Year. So Patea is famous for the Patea Māori Club, and one of their songs, Poor Year, is one that obviously gets belted around the world, believe it or not. So I'm certainly pretty excited to tell people where I'm from and a little bit about the song whenever I hear it overseas, that's for sure. But that's where it all started for me. Just a young fella growing up, played footy in Patea, all the typical young boy things growing up, frosty mornings, standing on artificial cricket pitches, like huddling together, trying to stay warm before you ran out there, oranges, mouth guards, all that sort of good stuff. But then moved on to Francis Douglas, played in the first 15 up there, then down to Palmerston North, where I was at university, ended up making the Manawatu under-20 side before I picked up an very amateur rugby contract playing over in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And I jumped on that more as an opportunity just to go and see the world, to be honest. Rather than progress my rugby career. Because of my stature, I was pretty convinced I wasn't going to go too far. But was over there for two and a bit seasons, which is where I met my wife, and came home, played a bit of club rugby, and it was 2011 Rugby World Cup here, where I picked up the whistle, not by choice. that's another story on its own. But I picked up the whistle in 2011, refereed a game of kids under 12s, and I just remember running around and almost in awe of these young kids, like throwing the footy around, the love they had for the game. And then, I really felt as though my job was to try and create an environment where they could enjoy it, they could have that fun.
That's right, yeah.
And when you look at what I do now at an international level, it's actually very much the same. So, I remember coming off that game, and a couple of parents came up and they actually said, thanks so much for what you did and the way you refereed the game. And, it was the first time that I'd been involved in rugby and really felt as though I'd made a positive contribution to the game.
Yep.
You can come off a game as a player and get a pat on the back by your mates or a coach or whatever it may be. But to be singled out and say, hey, thanks so much, you really made a positive contribution to the game. Like, it was a really good feeling. And with one of my values being contribution, like it really sang to that. So that was kind of the start of it. And so that was 2011. And in end of 2015, start of 2016, New Zealand Rugby offered me a full-time contract, which nearly knocked my socks off. So, it was a pretty quick transition.
What position did you play when you were playing rugby?
Well, I certainly wasn't anywhere near the front row, and I wasn't in the forwards either. The rugby's a great game. There's a position for everyone, and for me, my position was halfback.
Yep.
And when I went up to the UK and played up there, I spent a bit of time playing 5'8" as well. So they already had a pretty good 9 there. I wasn't too bad at 10, and I kicked a few goals. I found myself playing 10. So that's been at 9 and 10. Haven't really found myself anywhere else, to be honest. And if I do, then I probably shouldn't be there.
Who have let me start this again. Who have been the biggest influences in your early development of your rugby refereeing journey?
Oh, certainly in the early stages. There was a guy called Matt Peters who was our referee education officer at the time here in Taranaki. He was the one who kind of stumbled across me first, and he started making a few phone calls to different people, and he thought he'd found the next test referee. Turns out he was bang on the money, and from there I was under the tutelage of Stuart Beisel, who was a referee coach at the time in Taranaki. So, I vividly remember sessions where he would get myself and Cam Stone at the time. He was very new to refereeing, and we were working on basic things like our signal and like keeping our arms straight and all the 101 basic things. But it had to start somewhere. The foundation blocks needed to be set, and Stu was the one who did that. From then, I've had a number. I should also mention like Lionel Shaw. Like, he's been a massive supporter since day one. Rugby nut, loves his referees. Would do anything for them, and to this day, without fail, he has never missed a game, whether it be club, NPC, Super or Test match. He will always flick me a message just to wish me all the best and enjoy it. He's actually more consistent than my wife is. Sometimes she forgets what country I'm in. So, like those ones were the main ones. From then, I've had some fantastic coaches. I've had Bryce Lawrence. I've had Colin Hawke. Now more recently, before Polly became our rugby referee manager, I had Chris Pollock. Now Mike Fraser, and Mike and I are working really well together. So even for someone of my age and stage, I guess, in my refereeing career, like I was actually on a call with him today. Going through a post year review. How can we keep getting better? How can we keep being curious? What can we tweak? What do we need to solidify more? What can we be more curious about? So, I've really developed a strong relationship in that coaching referee space with Mike. So, pretty exciting to think that there's still a little bit more juice left in the tank, mate.
Where was your first class debut, and what teams did you officiate, and what year?
Oh, what year? Now you're really testing me. I believe my first game was, this is something that I'm not very good at, the numbers and the games and the stats. I need Sarge here with me. I believe it was down in Ashburton. I had South Canterbury may have been playing West Coast. Like, I can remember who I was with. I vaguely remember the teams, but I remember a very, very young, spotty-faced little referee wearing his pink bats gear. I can see your jersey up there and behind you. That was it, mate. But that was I really enjoyed the time coming through. Those the Heartland level.
Yeah.
Some brilliant people that I've met along the way. Going to places like Buller, the West Coast, the far north, like that for me is where the real rugby is. It's the people that are there because they just love the game.
Yep.
They're the volunteers. They're the people that have been working behind the bar for 10 plus years. It's the community feel where the kids are running around. There's the aftermatch speeches. There's the player of the day where each player of the day has to chop a point or whatever it may be. Like, that for me is what I remember as a young kid growing up, those sorts of scenes. Where it's lost a little bit now with professional rugby is we don't get that as often.
Yeah.
Actually, we barely get it at all. So it's actually, I've said this before to a few people, like, I actually really enjoy going back to referee club rugby because it's almost like it's this a little energy pill that I need to take every now and then just to go back there and be immersed with the grassroots. Again, you're surrounded by people that are there because they just love the game. They're volunteers. They volunteer their time, their services. It's almost like a little shot in the arm of why I do what I do, I guess.
Chris Pollock, when I was back refereeing and he was based in Wellington, said he found it always challenging coming back down from sort of like Super Rugby and Test Rugby to come back to refereeing club rugby. How have you found adjusting back when you've had to go and referee club rugby?
I'll share a little story with you. I wasn't too long on the test scene. I've probably been doing it for maybe 2 or 3 years. I guess the other thing is too, like, because we don't typically referee the All Blacks. We go and referee other teams. No one really knows that we referee Test rugby because everyone in New Zealand watches the All Blacks. They don't really watch other games. So anyway, a game that I was refereeing, club rugby, I remember a scrum, and I remember a young boy from Southern who must have been all of about 17 or 18 giving me plenty of advice about how to referee the scrum. And I remember a couple of the boys in the opposition who knew who I was and the level that I was refereeing at, and they kind of looked at this young boy and they just shook his head, shook their head. So it's good because it's that little dose of perspective, right? And it grounds you. It keeps your feet on the ground. So when this young guy was giving me scrumming advice, and I probably needed it, to be fair, who knows what the call was, but I was just sort of nodding and smiling and saying, thanks, mate, I appreciate your feedback. So no, I love it, and it's for all those reasons that I said before. Do I find it hard? No, I don't find it hard. I guess the only thing that you need to be mindful of is, it's club rugby is a different product to professional rugby, and there's people there that turn up on a weekend to watch their local club team play, and they just want to watch them play. So I'm not going to go and referee a club game the same way in which I'd referee a Super Rugby game or a Test match for that instance. So I guess the thing for me is making sure you can set up the game in a way that it's enjoyable for everyone.
You mentioned about everyone watching the All Blacks, but you actually had the experience of refereeing the All Blacks in Test footy during the COVID years. How was that experience as a refereeing the All Blacks in a Test match, which is mainly officiated by a neutral referee?
Yeah, mate. This is a yeah. There's a lot of learning that came out of this. You know, when COVID hit, obviously we knew that, or we were told that Test matches were still going to go ahead. The reality was that they were going to be refereed by Kiwis and Aussies. So I remember speaking with Angus Gardner about this because we were going to be the first two to referee the All Blacks in Australia, and we spoke about you know, just labelling them black and gold. So we don't talk about the All Blacks. We don't talk about Australia. They're just two teams. One team wears black, the other team wears gold.
Yep.
So that was us in a really feeble attempt to try and pacify all these internal thoughts going on in our head around the fact that we're going to be refereeing our home country. So I guess my own personal experience and one where I got a huge amount of learning from that I carry with me even to this day, was when I had the All Blacks down in Wellington for the first Bledisloe against Australia. I remember driving to the ground, and it felt weird because we were driving along the waterfront there in Wellington, and there were all these All Black supporters walking towards the ground, where I hadn't experienced that before because typically I'd be away overseas refereeing somewhere. So that was odd. Got to the ground, warmed up. That was normal. That was fine. Then we came out for the national anthems. The Wallabies had their national anthem first. We then had ours, and I wasn't prepared for the emotional tidal wave that was about to hit me standing on the field with the All Blacks to my left and listening to my national anthem being played, or the New Zealand national anthem. And it took me until, like, I don't even remember the haka, because I was still trying to internally process all the emotions that I was feeling, and probably having to suppress, because let's be honest, I couldn't be standing there on the field with tears running down my face listening to the anthem about to go and referee the All Blacks, could I? So there was a lot of suppression and a lot of, I guess, blocking being put in place. Then once the game got going, I blew the whistle. Then it started feeling normal again because it was just 15 on 15. And to be honest with you, mate, I'm not smart enough to look at a decision and go, All Blacks or Wallabies? I will go this way. You just see a decision and you make the decision instinctively. So again, the game went fine right up until the end. And to fast forward, the game ended in a draw. At full time, with 80 minutes up on the clock, I awarded Australia a penalty, a long-range penalty, near on halfway, quite wide out, close to the 15. It was a holding-on penalty, gave it. Never in a million years did I think they were going to have a shot at goal. And Michael Hooper walked over to me and quite nonchalantly pointed to the post and said, we'll have a shot. And in that moment, I was thinking, shit, I'm potentially going to referee the All Blacks to a loss on home soil in front of my family and friends. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to have to change my address. I'm going to have to leave the country. My friends are going to disown me. My wife won't care because she doesn't follow rugby, so that'll be fine. But I had all these external thoughts going through my head. So here is Reece Hodge, who all rugby people know that Reece Hodge can absolutely belt the skin off a rugby ball. So I'm thinking, as he's lining this up, this is either going to go straight down the middle, they're going to win, or he's going to kick it dead and it'll be game over. It's going to be a draw. Those were the only two thoughts that I thought were going to happen. And while he's standing at the back of his run up, like, I've got, again, all these external thoughts going through my head, like me as a young, like, 6-year-old, like out of the bath, butt naked in front of my mirror, like doing the haka as a young kid in my bedroom. I've got posters on the wall of all these legendary All Blacks. And my mind is a million miles away from where it needed to be in that moment.
Yep.
So anyway, Reece Hodge kicks the ball. I'm watching it travel between the post. And just before it goes through, it must have been like the hand of God or something happened, but it broke hard left, went straight into the uprights, bounced back in field, and the game ended like 6 or 7 minutes later.
Yep.
But I'll be honest with you, it probably took me a good 30 to 40 seconds to pull my head out of all that external thought to get back on the job, which was, okay, tackle, breakdown, he's got to roll away, onside, okay, So there was a real good lesson in that game around staying present and acknowledging external thoughts will happen, but having something in place to be able to bring myself back to that moment where I need to be. And like, I can freely admit this now, like in the aftermath, I thought, I had an okay game, but I definitely know when that ball bounced off the post in that 30 to 40 seconds, there were decisions both ways that I could have made and just did not. So I had the entire Australian nation fuming at me. I had my own nation fuming at me, and I felt pretty bloody low in the aftermath of that game. Yeah. So while I sit here and say, "Hey, look, it's been cool to referee the All Blacks," there was definitely some powerful learning that came out of that one experience.
Would you say that was the one game where you learnt the most about yourself as a referee? That Test match?
Yep. Yeah, I'd certainly say it would be right up there. I also think, you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about yourself in pressure situations. And, I remember speaking with people whose opinions I hold like very valuable to me. Sometimes I would hear them say, what we see on the field is not necessarily the same person we see off the field in terms of my personality. And it always struck me as really interesting, because I know the good referees are also often spoken about as it's the same person off the field as what it is on the field. So that for me, I always got really curious around that. And and this was more early on in my career. And I know that I really struggled with imposter syndrome at the beginning of my career. And that was probably due to the fact, Brad, that it was such a quick transition from picking up a whistle in 2011. In 2015, I went to my first Junior Rugby World Cup where I refereed the final, and things just kept moving so quickly.
Yeah.
So there was kind of like this expectation that I keep growing with each opportunity, but I knew full well that my rise and my ability to learn along the way was probably not in sync.
Yep.
Like the opportunities were coming really fast, but the learning probably wasn't coming as quickly. Thankfully, I can say now, I think, that certainly caught up. But, I was so scared to make a mistake. I was so scared to get things wrong. If I was questioned about something, I'll be quick to defend myself because I was terrified that I'd be found out, So, there was a lot of learning that went on in those early years, but it probably really solidified in the later stages, So I can quite confidently sit here and say, I'm definitely not perfect. I certainly won't be. And I'm okay with that. I'm really okay with that. And my wife will be very quick to remind me of that. So it's all good.
Who are some of the most challenging players you have refereed, and how do you blend in humour into your refereeing?
Well, I wouldn't class myself as a funny guy, so I'd be pretty careful to bring in too much humour. But the challenging guys I've had, like Nick White is right up there.
Yeah.
TJ Perinara, there's a bit of a trend here with nines.
Yep.
And that's not to say I don't like these guys. Like, I actually really, really admire both of these guys in their own individual way. Just tremendous competitors. And, with Nick White, it was an interesting one because, during Super Rugby, I'd refereed him a heap of times, and then in the Test match arena as well. And I always remember, once I got to a certain sort of stage in the referee-player relationship with Nick White, we set up a bit of a boundary, and I said to him, "Hey, look, I'm more than happy, Nick, to have a bit of banter on the field, no problem at all. But there is a line and there is a boundary. So if you're getting close to that line, I'll just say to you, Nick, you're getting close, and I need you to respect that, and I need you to back off." And to his credit, he did that. He would chip away, he would chip players, he would question me about certain things, and while most of the time I'd be quite happy to answer them, but if it ever went too far and I used the phrase, "Hey Nick, you're getting pretty close to that line," he would respect that. So and TJ's another one, especially early on in his career. I mean, you've seen the YouTube and the Instagram footage of Angus Gardner getting questioned quite hard by TJ. So you've got to be on when you're referring TJ, because he does know the game, he does know his law. So you need to be ready for whatever is coming with TJ. But again, like, he's such a great guy, lovely human off the field. Both of those guys off the field, and just tremendous competitors on the field. So I think that's sometimes where we get a little bit misaligned. Like, we see a character in the way they behave on the field, but off the field they're just lovely guys, So and that's sometimes just a reflection of how brutally competitive they are, So no, I sit here and I certainly don't have any players that I think are hard to deal with or are difficult or frustrate me. So yeah.
What advice would you give to someone wanting to take up the whistle?
What advice? Don't do it. No. It's a great it's a great job, hugely rewarding. The advice that I would give them is don't take yourself too seriously. And what I mean by that is probably the lesson that I learned very early on, and what I shared before was I did take things very, very seriously. Like I said, I put a lot of my eggs in that one refereeing basket. I probably neglected some relationships along the way in order to keep working really hard and get where I've got. And also too, like, again, with this whole imposter syndrome that was knocking on the door, I felt as though I had to almost work twice as hard as what others did to try and catch up to where everyone else was. A lot of my colleagues that I referee with today, like, some of them have started as young as 18, 19, and I was 27, 28 when I picked up the whistle. So I certainly made some pretty average decisions in my life along the way early on. But I guess it's one of those things you live and you learn. So again, the advice I would give a young referee coming through is accept the fact that you are human, you will make mistakes, but to be brave enough and courageous enough to actually learn from those mistakes rather than putting defensive block walls in front of yourself. Don't take yourself too seriously. What do they say? Treat failure as an opportunity to learn. So and the more times you fail, the better you get. So go out there and fail hard, fail quickly.
It's the off season now for you. However, the Six Nations is not too far away, early next year. Do you know if you're involved yet in the Six Nations?
No. So appointments for Six Nations will be made probably in the next couple of weeks, which, we all sort of wait with bated breath this time of year. Yeah, I guess at the back end of the season, it's a lot about review of the season that's gone, and planning and preparing for the season coming up. So, I've already been over to the Chiefs just yesterday to connect with their new head coach, John O'Gibbs, and set up sort of how it's going to operate from a referee team relationship point of view. Once Six Nations appointments are made, then Chris Pollock gets the opportunity to appoint guys to Super Rugby, because he knows who's going to be available and who's going to be away. So in the next couple of weeks we'll know. But it's always exciting, and you never take that for granted, whether it be an NPC game, a test match, whatever it is. It's really nice to see your name down on that appointments list, because one day it won't be, So again, grab the opportunities while they're there.
How many Rugby World Cup tournaments have you been to, and what is it like refereeing at a Rugby World Cup?
So I've been to 2 World Cups. I've been to the World Cup in Japan, 2019, and then the most recent one in France. I think, to be honest with you, Brad, like my ambition in 2019 for Japan was to be there as an assistant referee.
Yep.
That would have been the goal for me in that year. So to make it as a referee, was a bit of a dream come true.
Yeah.
I didn't think that would be a possibility. So that was a phenomenal experience. But again, if I'm to be honest again, I went into that tournament with a real point that I felt like I had to prove.
Yep.
Because those that would know, like we had Glenn Jackson, who was probably our premier referee at that time.
Yeah.
And he missed out, which just blew all of us away. We did not see that coming at all. So it kind of blindsided everyone, not to mention Jacko. And it kind of felt bittersweet, because in a weird roundabout way, I kind of felt as though I was selected over him. I know that wasn't the case, but Jacko is a real good mate of mine. I learned so much working with him. And when we actually found out about when we were going to that World Cup, was we were working on a super game together over in Sydney, so staying in the same hotel. And we received phone calls around the similar time. One was to say, "Well done, Paul, you're going as a referee," and the other was to say, "Unfortunately, Jacko, you're not." So it was tough, because I really admired. I still admire Jacko for who he is and the man he is. So I was so bloody gutted for him, to be honest. And I remember ringing Mum and Dad not long after catching up with Jacko in the lobby, and I told Mum and Dad the news, and I also mentioned that unfortunately Jacko had missed out, and immediately his dad leaned into the FaceTime call and he said, "So you took Jacko's position." And so he made me feel really good about it, even more so. So so that was the World Cup in Japan. Then the World Cup more recently in France, which was a whole new experience. Like the French, European rugby, they just know how to put on an event, especially a rugby event. So the whole country was immersed in it, whereas in Japan, you could quite easily walk down the street and not actually know a Rugby World Cup was on.
Yeah.
But everywhere you looked in France, you knew there was a Rugby World Cup on. So, to have those experiences, to even be involved in one was unreal. To be involved in two was absolutely a dream come true. And, certainly, I'd love to put my hand up for the one in Australia too. Already the energy starting to brew with the pools being selected overnight last night, and there's a real good vibe starting to build. So and the fact that it's just on the back door there in Australia, it'd be really nice to be involved in that one. So yeah, but as I always say, mate, you're only as good as your last game, and so many other people say that as well. So yeah, next game for me will be the focus, and then we'll just see what happens after that, mate.
We'll finish up with this one last question for tonight. What has been your best game of rugby you have refereed, and why?
The best game, probably always the best games that I referee are the ones that the players take care of the outcome and nobody knows I was there. Those are the best ones. But one that probably jumps into my mind would be in 2000, and it was World Cup year, 2019, Six Nations game. England played Scotland, so Calcutta Cup at Twickenham, and that was my first Six Nations game. Mum and Dad came up for it. My sister was there. My younger sister was residing in the UK at that time, so she was there. My wife was there, so a really good support base. I remember standing again, one of those moments, standing facing the stadium, listening to the national anthems. It was "God Save the Queen" at that stage.
Yep.
The Queen was still alive, and I remember looking up into the crowd, and I could see where Mum and Dad and the family were standing. And as the anthem was being played, I was looking at Dad, and he was singing "God Save the Queen" at the top of his lungs. And it really threw me. And I was kind of thinking, shit, I hope no one knows who he is or why he's here or who he's related to, because this is going to be awkward. And I remember speaking to him afterwards, and I said, what was that all about?
Yep.
And he said, oh, well, back in my day when we were kids at school, we had to learn God Save the Queen.
That's right, yeah.
So he thought that he would bust out his best rendition of God Save the Queen at that moment. So not to mention the emotional damage that it caused me as I'm about to run out into my first Six Nations game. But anyway, no, the reason why that one was so memorable, mate, was because, there were some superstars playing in that game. Finn Russell for Scotland, Owen Farrell for England, not to mention a whole heap of others. But the England raced out to a big lead at halftime. And I remember sitting in the changing sheds with Jerome Garcias and Federico Anselmi, the Argentinian. And we were kind of having that conversation, and you know the one I'm talking about because you're a referee, mate, and you've been in this position where one team is getting absolutely thumped, and you're kind of thinking, how do we sort of, not rub salt into the wound, And we were having those sorts of conversations, not directly, but kind of indirectly. And anyway, we ran back out. Scotland ended up scoring 2 quick tries, bang, bang. All of a sudden, they were back in the game. They then went ahead of England for the last few minutes of the game. And George Ford, who came on as a replacement, ended up scoring a try after full time. And after 80 minutes, I should say, to draw it 38 all. So a Six Nations game, like, as we know, like historically, those Six Nations games can be pretty dire affairs, and a 9-6 win wouldn't be unheard of. So a 38 all draw try fest. And I was just running around like a kid in a candy store. Like it was 80,000+. They were God Save the Queen. They were Swing Home Sweet Chariot. They were just roaring, and it was just the most epic game. And the referee wasn't spoken about. Yep. So it was, I remember going up into the the function after the game, and there were all these, elderly gentlemen sitting there, and they were just, I was hearing some of the conversations, and, it's one of the best games they've ever seen in Six Nations history. And to think that I was a part of that is pretty special. And that one will live with me for a very long time. So, yeah, that's the one for the memory books.
Paul, it's been fantastic having you on the Huddy Hui. All the best for the Christmas and New Year, and fingers crossed that you get given a Six Nations appointment, and we'll see you around the fields in Wellington when you're next down.
Look forward to it. Thanks for having me, Brad. Take care, mate. Merry Christmas.
You too, Paul. That is Paul Williams, professional referee. Great chat with him this evening as we look to close out the Huddy Hui for 2025. I've done 45 episodes tonight, this year, sorry. So it's been a very busy year indeed. It's, as I mentioned last week, we're going to have a top 10 of the moments we have covered here on Huddy Sports of the live streams we've done. And I got a selection of people together to look at the top 10. And I think we've got our top 10 moments that we think are worthy to show you tonight. So here they are. This is the top 10 moments of Huddy Sports for 2025. To the backs, Cooper. Here's William Davis. And he just gets it down in time. He scored it. No, he scored that one.
The assistant probably got unsighted there. Initially
Our
fell on his
cameraman
back.
James is the best in the business, and he has captured a try. Let's study the replay. Will Davis with language that his mum might not like to hear. Goodness me, we must stress that this is subject to human error, this game, but boy, there's nothing we can really say about that try that wasn't. It was a try, folks.
Yeah. Back down to Boshier. He passes infield to Sims. Sims tries to catch them open. Is it going to be a 50-22? Oh, that is a beautiful kick that time there.
Discipline important, no offsides. Oh, drop
kick by Henderson. He's got it. The kick's gone over. Down 6 short of the line. Champion there, helping in the defence. Here's Ingram again. Crashing for his both. Ingram. Try number 2 for the... Off his ankles. Henry.
Oh.
Back out to Jared Adams. Adams crashes through. Can he go the whole way? He certainly will.
What a run.
Jared Adams crashes over. Oh, good bust here by Variety. Still going. Pass out to Dobbins. Ernst cuts through. Dobbins scores a try in the Jubilee Cup final. He runs faster than his greyhound. And that's what Dobbins can do. Punishing try. And the Eagles in front.
I thought I was seeing things here, but I wasn't. Fritz Rayasi running down, cutting through with one boot on. That's pretty impressive.
After Thomas having a bit of a word to both captains, plays back underway. Oh, never stays out. Andrew Jones has scored an impressive try. The pass under pressure from the line out for the Villagers. And taken changes again out to Fletcher Cooper. Cooper pushes through, smashed into the turf. Offloads it just in time. Picked up by Kennedy. Here he goes. Hunter Kennedy. Has he got enough pace? He's going to go all the way to the corner. Hunter Kennedy. Magic at its finest. Less than 5 minutes to go. Dakin eyes it out to Cooper, who's going to line up a drop goal.
He's kicked it!
He's got it!
They'll write a Bible verse about that!
the Huddy Hui. You can find Huddy Sports on Instagram and Facebook. And check out huddysports.co.nz.
Blocked drains, leaky pipes, don't let plumbing problems sideline your day. Call the team, Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited. Mike has been our sponsor since the very beginning. From quick fixes to full renovations, he's got the tools, the team and the know-how to get the job done right. First time, every time. Local, reliable and always on time. That's how Mike plays the game. Find Mike Pinfold at Pinfold Plumbing at extra.co.nz 027 430 4351. Mike Pinfold Plumbing and Drain Laying Limited. Also Google Mike Pinfold Plumbing and let the pros handle the flow.
Hi, Gavin Murphy here
And Cassie Murphy.
from G and Higton Funeral Directors.
Don't leave it up to someone else to tell your story. Do it now when you can enjoy being part of the conversation.
With a prepaid funeral, you can have music, readings and venue all chosen by you.
For your free funeral planning pack with everything you need to get started, go to our website at gnhigton.co.nz/pre-planning.
The Huddy Hui. Huddy Sports' captivating sports show. The Huddy Hui covers Wellington Club Rugby as well as other sporting topics of debate. Tune in on YouTube during the rugby playing months as host Brad Hudson interviews rugby players and other sporting personalities across the Wellington region and the rest of New Zealand. Catch the Huddy Hui streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and wherever good yarns are heard. The Huddy Hui live on Huddy Sports. Here at Huddy Sports, we love a good game plan. And when it comes to travel, our go-to is Louise Reddy from New Zealand Travel Brokers. Whether it's a sports tour, a family break, or that bucket list trip, she'll get you there stress-free with all the best deals around. She's local, she's experienced, and she backs the game like we do, and she's a great supporter of Huddy Sports. Look up Louise Reddy at louisereddy.nztravelbrokers.co.nz or email louise@louise.reddy@newzealandtravelbrokers.co.nz. Travel smart and travel like a pro. As here on Huddy Sports, we're always wanting to keep our content free on YouTube. So the idea of sponsors, we can promote you on live stream, our social media pages and our website. It's good to support the local community and helps keep Huddy Sport free for all to watch. So if you're interested to helping Huddy Sports, go to huddysports.co.nz or to our email address, huddysportsnz@gmail.com. Ciao for now.